The world is coming undone. Imperial flags reign across the galaxy.
Can you be trusted without your shackles?
Let's just get this over with, shall we?
We've a mission for you. A major weapons test is imminent. We need to know how to destroy it.
There isn't much time. Every day they grow stronger.
There is a 97.6% chance of failure.
He means well.
This is our chance to make a real difference. Are you with me?
All the way.
My Nerd World.
Unshackled from the need to have to follow in certain footsteps of previous Star Wars films, does Rogue One put itself in a position where it could potentially become one of the best Star Wars films of the 7 that have been made so far. Welcome to episode number 68 of the My Nerd World Star Wars podcast. I'm your host, John Justice. Glad that you are with the podcast again this week. 11 days at the recording of the podcast until we are all going to be able to feast our eyes upon Rogue One, a Star Wars story. And repeat myself again, I'm hyped for this film. Yes, I'm hyped for this film. But now people are seeing many minutes of this film, 28 minutes, 30 minutes of this film. Some people may have seen the entire movie already. As a matter of fact, one individual has seen the whole movie already in particular, and that would be one George Lucas, who said he saw it and he loved it, which put Gareth Edwards, the director of Rogue One, at ease. I think this film is going to sneak up on everybody and is going to be a heck of a lot more popular and a lot better than what even myself, even me, what I thought it was going to be. Look at Star Wars. You can't really do it. I mean, you can do it wrong, but you can't really do it wrong. Okay? Am I an apologist? Sure. I do like The Phantom Menace. I can still sit down and enjoy all the films. As a matter of fact, I just worked through the prequel trilogy over the course of the past week or so, and I still immensely enjoy those films. Rogue One is positioning itself to be something very, very unique and special. And we're going to talk about that on the podcast. That'll be towards the end of the podcast this week. I do want to mention a particular trailer, which shocked me that it actually was able to bring me to tears, seeing how much footage that we've seen so far. I have some audio to share with you. We have a clip from the film that I'll play for you very shortly. And plus, I have about 5 minutes of interviews. Basically, I cobbled together about 3 different interviews of Gareth Edwards. I took out those that were doing the interviewing, so you just get Gareth Edwards, the director's comments on a number of different issues. But it's pretty easy to follow. If at any point, as I'm listening back when I play those interviews, about 5 minutes worth, I'll stop and give you a little bit of context on some of the what he was talking about. But I think you'll be able to follow along. But this movie, now that people are starting to see it, really I think is going to be something special. And I started off the podcast with that comment because I think that's the reason why. Star Wars is awesome, right? George Lucas created this world that is so unique and so special that anybody that tries to go and do it is just going to be compared to what George created. He was the first one to do it, and albeit I don't think anybody's going to be able to really do it as good again. It is such a phenomenon, and it is going to continue to be such a part of culture for such a long time that it just lends itself to being so unique and so special, and it transcends generations, generation after generation. And that really is the driving force behind what makes Star Wars work, is that even when you go and look at the original trilogy, and as I talked about at length last week, watching Return of the Jedi, I wished that there would be an update to that movie to fix just some of the special effects work and just kind of give it a fresh take and tone. But the thing about Star Wars is that George created this universe that is so infinitely relatable. And, of course, the mythology of it, drawing on Joseph Campbell and going to those basics of good versus evil, creating a religion that was very simplistic and easy to explain, easily acceptable, and yet so relatable regardless of what your religious or non-religious background is. Rogue One has this opportunity. For me, it's a little selfish because it has this opportunity to be incredibly special because of the nature of what it is. It's a war movie, and that is my favorite, on the very top of my list of my favorite things about Star Wars. The vehicles, the battle scenes, the epic nature of them. You don't get there without the Force. You don't get there without the characters. You have to love those characters as well. But when those moments take place, they're just so unique and special. I sat down, and there was another trailer. It was TV spot number 21. Most of these spots are basically just sort of cobbled together 15, 30-second commercials of the longer trailers. But this one spot dropped, much in the same way that one of the Force Awakens trailers that offered up some new footage dropped. And it was the Hope Begins trailer. If you can, unless you don't want to be ruined by it, again, we're less than 2 weeks out now. If you can, though, go on to YouTube and just type in Rogue One, TV spot number 21, Hope Begins, and check it out. This trailer completely caught me off guard. And it did. I welled up a little bit. Reason being is that there are some shots of Yavin, of the X-Wings, that just grabbed me in all the possible feels that I could imagine. And Melinda my wife was sitting there. She was working on some Christmas stuff when it played, and she saw my reaction. And actually, Logan, it was funny because Logan, my 14-year-old, was sitting there too. And it just happened to be on a whim. I was playing Battlefront. I switched over to YouTube. I was seeing what new videos had popped up, and this one popped up, and I played it, and I just was audibly like, oh, because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And there were just some of these epic shots. There's one of an X-Wing taking off of Yavin with a ground control operator with light sticks, and it's at night, and there's a lot of just atmospheric, just smoke going on, and the angle at which it takes off. I mean, the shot was just, it grabbed the little kid in me, and towards the end of it, there's a couple other X-Wing shots that are just amazing, and then there's one, and I actually watched the video right before I did the podcast today, just so I can kind of recapture that. And it's a shot of 6 X-Wings and a U-Wing that are coming off of the surface or over the surface of this battle-strewn Scarif, where I'm fairly certain the final battle takes place. It looks, my guess would be, and no spoiler alert here, I have a theory on something that I'm going to save towards the end of the podcast for those that don't want to hear it. But I have a theory as it relates to this particular shot that I wonder if this is towards the end of the film after the battle is over and the X-Wings are sort of doing are departing. We get that departing shot, much in the same way we did. I mean, at the end of all the movies, after whether it was A New Hope or Return of the Jedi or The Force Awakens, when they're leaving, whatever's blowing up or whatever they've accomplished, right? But this shot of all these X-Wings, it just made my eyes well up. And Melinda goes, "Are you looking more forward to this film, to Rogue One, than The Force Awakens?" And I had to catch myself, and I just, as an instinctive reaction, I just said, no, but yes. I'm not, because The Force Awakens was the dawn of a new Star Wars era that so many of us didn't think we were going to get. And it was an opportunity for J.J. Abrams to, what in many people's minds were to correct the wrongs of the prequel trilogy. And while I love the prequel trilogy, I do understand that mentality, and I don't argue with it. We want to bring Star Wars back and make it the best it can possibly be. The prequels weren't the best they could possibly be. George was pushing the boundaries in a lot of different ways, and I exponentially enjoyed The Force Awakens much more than I enjoy any of the prequel movies. And I mean, I wouldn't mind them going back to the prequels and sort of giving a fresh coat of paint on all those early CGI effects. Rogue One is the first Star Wars movie, or is the Star Wars movie, that gets us as close to redoing an original trilogy film as possible. And one of my favorite parts of certainly, well, both Return of the Jedi and the Death Star, that end battle on the Death Star. I was so happy that George went and redid that end battle. As a kid, seeing those models fly through space in a way that I've never seen before it was mind-blowing. Just to see these X-Wing fighters and TIE fighters, battling above this massive space station. As a child, it blew me away. And seeing George come back in and update that and give it a fresh coat of paint, if you will, and bring it into and make it even more realistic with the CGI. I love that. It's one of my favorite things about A New Hope is that end battle. It's my favorite scene from that film is that end battle sequence. And I told Melinda, I said, man, Rogue One has the opportunity to take those images and those things directly from those films and do it in a modern, fresh way. And so in that sense, it is like an original trilogy movie. And it's the closest thing we're going to get to redoing an original trilogy movie. And I'm not having that discussion right now about whether that should happen. I've, given my thoughts on that before. I think given enough time, eventually it's going to happen. I'd like to see it in my lifetime. But this film, just from a visual standpoint, is so just stunning. So yeah, I'm incredibly excited for it now on a pure Star Wars level, right? You go back to The Force Awakens, and The Force Awakens did what it had to do, and I love that film. I absolutely adore that movie. But it did what it had to do. It had to go and touch upon each of the original trilogy films to kind of let everybody know, hey, everybody, the party's back. This is what you're familiar with, and we're going to give this to you, and now we're going to move forward, which is why I've argued that Episode 8 is the biggest gamble, because that's the one that's supposed to be weird and different, right? Rogue One, again, has an opportunity here to do something those other films don't. It's not shackled to the saga story. It's not shackled to any of the beats that the other movies have to hit or that we want to see hit. Cantina scenes and the lightsaber battles. No, man, we can go into the Star Wars universe, the Star Wars world, and provide something completely different, and albeit in a war movie. So yeah, I'm incredibly excited. Incredibly excited. And the kid in me is looking. I'm looking at these original trilogy X-Wing fighters, and it's just like, man, it's the stuff of dreams. It is absolutely the stuff of dreams. All right, let's move over to some audio. Some people have already seen the film. The individuals who were interviewing Gareth Edwards, the director of Rogue One, had already seen the film. They made a comment on this. Not seen the film. They'd seen about 28 minutes of it, of footage, which is basically, I guess they showed the opening scene that we talked about in the spoiler portion of last week's podcast, and then they showed many of the battle sequences, which everybody, I haven't seen anybody comment online yet who has seen the 30 minutes of footage of Rogue One and said it wasn't good. Everybody is saying it's great. One individual with Collider posted that he knows someone who's seen the whole film and said that they said next to A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back, it was the third best Star Wars movie. So here's about 5 minutes of a combination of different interviews done during a lengthy day-long press junket on the press tour, obviously, for Rogue One, with director Gareth Edwards. Enjoy.
My Nerd World.
George is retired, so we were actually pitching it to Kiri Hart, who's head of development at Lucasfilm. And